Maps of Meaning by Jordan B. Peterson. In this book, we're taken on an odyssey through literature, mythology, and religion. And Dr. Peterson, what he attempts in this book is to connect that which has traditionally been narrated through stories and myths with what neuroscience is now telling us about the brain. And our ancestors, just like us, they were trying to understand the world around them, but the way we and them approached it is fundamentally different. Quote, "Our ancestors were not as simple-minded as we think they were, and their theories of the generation of the cosmos were not mere primitive science. Archaic theory of creation attempted to account for existence of the world as experienced in totality." Hi and welcome to the Book Lab. I'm Björn, and this is the place where we bring you the best book recommendations when it comes to philosophy, psychology, human nature and human potential. And today we're talking about Maps of Meaning by Jordan B. Peterson. And it's so easy for us to infantilize the people of the past. No science, one might say. Then to hell with it. Then it's all superstitions and stories that people made up to uphold the current social order and to force people to play their part. Quote, "Creation myths are generally considered primitive or superstitious attempts to perform the magic of modern science. We assume that our ancestors were trying to do the same thing that we do when we construct our cosmological theories and describe the generation of the objective world. That presumption is wrong. The difference," Peterson argues, is that people of the past, they were interested in the significance of things, the world as form for action, and that's what the old stories describe. They describe how we should act in the world rather than describing the thing itself and its history like modern science tried to do. Quote, "The world brought into being in archaic myths of creation is phenomenological rather than material. It includes all aspects of experience, including those things that we now regard as purely subjective. The archaic mind had not yet forgotten what was important." This book covers a lot of motifs and themes that you can see in many different mythologies. Ouroboros, the Great Mother, the Tree of Life, Yggdrasil, the Fall, the story of the Buddha, the Hostile Brothers. It covers a lot of ground. Probably my main takeaway from this book is the creation of these myths, the creation of culture, and how we only see the very last stage of the process as these stories and narratives are handed down to us. It talks about the construction of culture, for instance. A behavior is imitated, then abstracted into play, formalized into drama and story, crystallized into myth, codified into religion, and only then critiqued in philosophy and provided post hoc with rational underpinnings. So it's only at this very last stage that we come in, we look at these myths, we scoff at them and discard them as superstition because we don't understand how they came about. The meaning and significance of the stories has become opaque. It has become invisible to us. For as much as I loved this book, and I truly did, it's one of my favorite rabbit holes to jump down. I mean, the origin of meaning, the architecture of belief, mythology, like it's all good stuff. But the complicated language that Dr. Peterson uses and the long sentences, it makes me a little bit suspicious. Is he hiding poor reasoning behind convoluted language? Or maybe he has some academic insecurities and wants to sound smarter in some way. I don't know, but I kind of starting to agree with Schopenhauer when he says, one moment, on the suffering of the world. "The thoughts a man is capable of always express themselves in clear, comprehensible and unambiguous words. Those who put together difficult, obscure, involved, ambiguous discourses do not really know what they want to say." Secondly, Jordan Peterson is not a big fan of ideologies, and he makes it very clear in this book, and he makes a really good case for their potential dangers. But he has a little bit of an ideology of his own, one might say, and it has potentially some concerning bits to it. In the idea that we're all acting out myths and archetypes that has been passed down through stories and cultures, we're all bound to these narratives. So the question is, how does anything new come about? How do we reach a new paradigm in this context? Through the revolutionary hero, of course. The heroic individual who ventures into the unknown and slays the dragon of chaos and saves his father from the belly of the beast, then return to the village with new and reinvigorated cultures and updated values, of course. That's all well and good, of course, but what about the person who doesn't want to play their part in this mythological tug of war between order and chaos? Resentment. But I'm not resentful, I just don't think this template suits me and what I want to do with my life. Then it's unconscious resentment. It's hard to argue with that silver bullet, and that's kind of the apprehension I have with this whole idea. This book will stay with me for a while. It's a rich and dense book. It's a packed experience, and it's one of those books that gives you a new lens through which to see the world, and it draws from a lot of good literature, like Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago is mentioned, Notes from the Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky, a great read. I know there's a lot of people who are a bit worried and feel like, oh, I heard this book is so complex, can I really pick this one up? I've read 12 Rules for Life and I like that one, but I don't know if this is too much. And I have to say, it's more complex, but it's not impenetrable by any means. If you loved Jordan Peterson's fantastic Bible series that are on YouTube, and I will link to them in the description, then reading this book is a natural next step. And I read it as an audiobook as well, read by the author, and that was a really good way of enjoying this book. I couldn't catch it all, like there's so much in this book, but it gave me a good overview, and I feel like if I return to it, it's like an onion, right? So you peel one layer off and then you have another and then another. If you read this book over and over again, you will find new things each time. It's a great book. It's totally worth picking up if you're into mythology, and it's also a part of understanding human nature, which this channel is all about. So smash the subscribe button. It really helps me reach more people with great books like this. Other books coming up is that I'm going to start reading Transcendence, The New Science of Self-Actualization by Scott Barry Kaufman. This is a book that everyone in the book community on Instagram is talking a lot about, and people that I seriously trust and whose opinions I value, they really praise this book. So I'm looking forward to diving into that one. And next week we will have a review up on You're Not Listening by Kate Murphy. There's a lot of good lessons from that one, so don't miss that one. Coming up on Thursday. Until then, have a good one. Björn out.